two ends of the extremes here, okay? Why would I recommend this for those dogs? Because when a dog has this on, this is control center for dogs. Anything around the muzzle, the head, the neck. Very much control center, okay? If you have a dog that when you lean over the head and go for the neck, that dog goes like this, okay? A lot of dogs don't want you near there. They don't like being leaned over, they don't like anything over their head, around their neck. And those are the dogs that are a little more dominant, okay? Dominant isn't a bad thing. It's only bad when the dominant dog starts acting aggressively to assert its dominance. Then it's bad. But you can have a dog that's very full of himself and dominant and not aggressive. Okay? So dominance isn't a bad thing. You need all kinds of dogs. You need, in a litter, you need a variety, otherwise they would never survive. You need the peacekeeper. You need the submissive dog. You need the work dog. You need the kind of worker bee, if you will. You need the more dominant dog. You need a variety of personalities. And dogs have a variety. Anyway, so when I put it on the reactive dog, it's not a magic bullet, but it takes the edge off of that reactive thing. Why? Because when they feel that, first of all, there are calming points here and around the neck, but also they feel that someone else is in control, so they tend to back off. Now again, this is not a magic bullet, like, I'm going to put this on, the dog's going to be just fine forever. No. But it does tend to have that effect. We use it when we're working with aggressive dogs sometimes. Not because it keeps them from biting, but because it just takes the edge off. Oh, someone's in control of me. I'm not in control here. For the fearful dog, the dog says, someone's in control. Thank God. I don't have to take the law into my own paws. If they control me, they control the environment around me. I can relax. So sometimes, no, not always, but sometimes for the more fearful dog, this tends to be helpful. Okay? Any questions about, you only need a collar. I'm not saying you need any of these. All you need is a plain collar. But if your dog is pulling and you need some help with that, then you may want to take a look at these, or you might want to try them both in class, see which one works better, whatever. Okay? If you go to the stores, remember, buy everything, try them all, and take back what you don't feel works well for you. Questions about any of that? Boy, I must be good. Huh?
Are we going to go into about, like, we put a leash and a collar on him, he just thinks it's playtime, and he takes the collar and the leash, and he's, you know what I mean? He holds the leash in his mouth instead of us, you know what I mean? He wants to play.
Okay, all right.
We're going to go into that, or is that next week?
That'll be questions. I'll answer it during the question period, and also Glenn will help you with that in class. Yeah,
Right.
sure.
Thank you.
Sure, it's a good question, and a lot of people have that problem, so it's not unique. Okay, so don't worry. And just remind me when we come to the question section to ask. Next thing, so you need a collar, you need a leash. You need a leash that's 6 feet or longer, okay? You are welcome to use, if you're good at using it, you're welcome to use a retractable lead. I would not let young people use this, okay? Because they can be very dangerous. I've had people, come to me, and one woman, the dog, ran around her leg, and this wrapped around the knee and went clear through to the bone. She had shorts on, and, well, dogs can exert a lot of pressure. So with that dog lunging at another dog, this just went and just cut right through her. Now, maybe she had sensitive skin or whatever. I had a guy in Marblehead that when I mentioned that, he said, yeah, you want to see? And he pulled up his pant leg and he had a big gash in the back of his leg. So as much as I love these, and I do, because I can't use a regular leash anymore. I don't know how people, I'm all thumbs with a regular leash. I don't know how you control a dog with a regular leash anymore, seriously. Because, does everybody know how you use these?
I don't.
Okay, so I can lock it at this length, or any length I want, or I can just give the dog full rein, and they can come in, come out, wherever they go, all right? Because I give my dog walks. I don't take the dogs on my walk. When I go for a walk, it's the dog's walk. All right, dogs need a dog walk. And dog walks often involve dogs stopping to sniff poop, running over to investigate something. It's not just, we go outside and we walk, and then we go back home, and we walk, and we're in the house. That's not a dog walk. Dogs don't walk that way. Now, obviously, sometimes your dog has to walk like that because you got to go to work, or you've got this, or you got that, and we don't have time to do so much of that. But dogs do need a lot of those kinds of walks, okay? Because people say, I go for a walk with the dog and the dog keeps stopping. How do I get him to just keep walking? Well, you know, let your dog be a dog. You're going to have to account for that. You're just going to have to account for that because that's what dogs do. Now, a lot of people say, but I don't want to. Well, then that's different than, you know, there are things you can do to keep your dog just walking, but they're not going to be very happy campers. And very often they're going to try not to do it. Okay, so then you're going to be struggling with them. You know, choose your battles. Choose your battles wisely. There's a bottom line with dogs, and then the rest of it, hey, you know, the bottom line is obviously they're not biting people, they're not putting people's body parts into their mouths, they're not jumping on people, they come when they're called, they sit. If you ask me for a list, that would probably be my short list. You know, those things are probably the most important. Anyway, so then, could you hold this for a second? Or no, here, can you hold that, honey? All right, so now he's my dog. What kind of dog are you? What kind of dog do you have?
A pug. A chug.
A chug. Chihuahua pug? Okay, a chug. We used to call him Mods. Another thing when I was a kid. Anyway, so he's my chug, all right, and I see him getting into trouble there, and I don't want him to do what he's doing. So what I do is, it's like a fishing line. I reel him in like this. I go down the line, put the brake on, and pull. So come, as I pull you, come to me. Come to me. Yeah, now stand there, see, and then I just keep pulling. Yeah, and I pull you, you come to me. You're good. You make a good dog. See, and then I bring him to me. Okay? So, that's the way this works. All right? I think it's a wonderful training tool. I can get a dog out 35 feet away from me, especially with this one because it goes out pretty far. And I would always get the longest one you can, because you can always make it less, as much as you want. You could even, you know, block it so that they're right by your side. Okay? That's if I can do that. So I can have the dog right by my side, and there is a handle kind of thing here. So I can have a dog by me if I want to, okay? Anyway, I can work on a down stay, a sit stay, and a down stay at a distance and still have the dog under my control. All right, so a lot of training can be done with this. But you don't need this, all right? All you need is a leash 6 feet or longer. You're welcome to use this kind. Don't let young people use them. They are dangerous. You know, they can cut your hand. People get wicked rope burn because they forget, like the dog is lunging at another dog and they're scared. And instead of reeling the dog in, they're grabbing the line. And the dog is running and the line is rubbing through their hand. You know what I mean? So you really have to have the muscle memory to use this properly. And if you're the kind of person that when you meet up with other people, you're like, hi, how are you? What's going on? And the dog is over here, you know, forget it. Don't use this. You know. Plus, even if you have a regular leash, your eyes should always be on your dog. You know, I mean, not glued, but you've got to be aware of your dog. Okay, so the leash 6 feet or longer because we're going to do all the work on lead. And you're going to do it at home on lead. And we'll talk about that, okay? When you're practicing, you're going to be doing it on leash. That's the first step, on lead work. Then we go to drag line, which means I'm not at the end of the leash, but they have a line that's dragging so that I have some control, and we'll talk about that. And then, eventually, and it takes time, people, some dogs take longer than others, eventually you might be able to get to off-lead vocal control, where you don't need your dog on leash at all. You can just carry a little something to, you know, assuage the dog officer. And your dog is under control so that if you say to your dog, Rover, stop. Rover, right here, right now. You're fine. He's going to pretty much listen. I can't guarantee you, though, robots. Right here, I'm telling you now. I can't guarantee that I'm gonna turn, that Glenn is gonna turn your dog into a robot, where every time I tell this dog to come, the dog comes. I can't guarantee that.
How long for an average dog does it take to learn? Because that's my main concern, is being able to let her off the leash. Like if she gets out of the house and the yard, a huge yard, but she's not gonna run out into the middle of the street. And she, like, to come is my main thing. Like, how long does it normally take a dog off a leash?
It's gonna take you a while. And it's not so much how long is it gonna take her, it's how much can you be consistent, how much time are you gonna work with her, how much you understand about how to work with her, okay? Again, dogs have different personalities. Some are really driven by things. They see something across the street and they're just driven to chase it if they're more prey dog drives. I mean, it depends on breed. It depends on the individual dog. Individuals within a breed vary. So it's very hard to say, oh, by 6 months, by a year, by whatever, your dog will just come. It's very tough for me to say. I wish I could. It takes some time, usually, for most dogs to get a good recall. Okay? And we're going to talk about the steps of doing that in a little bit. Okay? Okay, so you need the leash, 6 feet or longer, and you need time. Now, we say on the handout 15 minutes a day. If you can do more, that's great. But we don't mean 15 minutes all at one time. You can't concentrate that long, and definitely your dog can't, okay? Because, 15 minutes of just really focused work, a lot of us just can't do that. The kids are yelling, running around, I gotta go to this, the food's on the thing, and the computer, so it's really tough. Plus, it's not these long sessions that are gonna make the difference. It's the repetition all throughout the day, as much as you can. We understand our limitation, but as much as you can, a minute here, 2 minutes there, and sprinkle it all throughout the day. That's the way you should be approaching this. Now, that being said, training isn't kind of like, oh, now it's time to train the dog, Rather, it's everything you do with your dog is an opportunity to train your dog. And once you can kind of get yourself into that mode, and it takes some thought at first to get into that mode, then every interaction, you're training. Rather than feeling like it's, oh, now I gotta train the dog. You know what I mean? So, I go to feed the dog, I make the dog sit. Okay? And if the dog doesn't sit too well, I'm going to hold the dog, not hard, but just between the shoulder blades, just kind of anchor them. Put that food down very quickly in the beginning stages. Quickly, okie dokie, and release the dog. I mean, fast. Because that dog, maybe if your dog is the type to quick jump to the bowl, that he's not going to sit there. So the first stages are just Rover sit. He doesn't sit, you help him, quick the bout and quickly release. Because we want to make sure that he thinks that we released him. He doesn't know that yet, but at least we jumped in there and said okie dokie or released. And you've got to come up with a release word, people. Okay, every cue that you give your dog has an end. Glenn and I differ a little bit on this. Glenn and I have some different opinions. Anyway, because when you call your dog to come to you, it doesn't mean, hi, bye. It means come where I can put my hands on you, and you stay there until I say, okie dokie, which means you can now leave. So everything you tell your dog to do, you initiate it and you end it. Come, okay, you're right here, you stay there. Maybe I tell you to sit, and you stay until I release you. I use okie dokie. She's just throwing everything around. She's just throwing it all around. She's getting upset already. Look at this. Oh my God, I gotta train the dog. Okay, so I use okie dokie because my natural instinct is to use, okay, don't use good dog. Good dog, the praise should be not the release. Yes, what a good boy. Stay. That's a good boy. Okie dokie. Or released or freed. Just come up with something that feels good for you, comfortable for you. Okay?
If you and your husband are using different words to train your dog, does it confuse them?
Let's put it this way. Dogs are smart, but why not make it easy for them? We want to keep them as successful as we can. So if we're going to set up a dog for success, which is what our prime goal needs to be, then using the same words would be helpful. So get it together, guys. Maybe you could, no, seriously, sometimes it helps to sit down and say, you know, this naturally comes out of me like this, and he's saying that, and, you know, maybe you guys can figure out something that works. You know what I mean? For some of the basic cues, it's not like, you know, it's going to be a long list or anything. But the release word, it would be good to have them the same. And try not to use something that you use all the time in your everyday language, okay? Do you notice how I use okay as a tag on every one of my sentences? Every utterance I use, it's okay. So if I use okay for releasing a dog, he's going to be feeling he's released all the time because I use okay all the time. Or like if I say, yeah, Glenn, okay, and the dog jumps out of the car because he thinks I just released him. You know what I mean? So use something that's not used often. And, you know, it's like sitting and staying. I have the dog sit and stay at the door, and the dog doesn't exit until I release him. Then I generalize that to the car. So, you know, when I'd open up the hatchback, he'd be back there, and I'd say, sit, stay. I take the groceries out, go in the house, and he stays there until I come back and then release him. Now, some dogs can't manage that, no matter how much you try. You know, if these are dogs that are really hyper or like prey-driven or whatever, sometimes those dogs, you're never going to get to that point. There are limitations. For example, huskies pull. Well, what do you know? I have a husky, he's pulling me, what do I do? Well, he may pull you for the rest of his life. You may be able to get him to moderate that behavior or modify that behavior. You can definitely use equipment to help him to, you know, so that he's not pulling you all over the place. You can hook him up to a wagon with a harness and have him pull rocks when you go for a walk and give him some good exercise. I mean, you think I'm joking? I mean, we have to use their natural tendencies in ways that are productive for them and helpful for us. But some dogs, like scent hounds, some dogs can be off leash that are scent hounds that are driven by their noses. Other dogs can't because they just go, and when they're in scent mode, they don't hear you. They don't hear you. Their ears are, you know, a lot of them have long ears, ear flaps, and so like they're like this, and you're saying, stop right here, and they're like, they don't hear you. So there are some dogs that will never be off leash. So there are limitations, people, depending on your dog, and you have to accept those. Okay. But not all dogs will have those kinds of limitations. Questions? Okay, so again, the training is basically, I want to pet my dog, make him sit first. If he doesn't sit, you're going to put him into a sit. Let's say he comes over and he wants attention, and I say, Rover, sit. And he doesn't sit, I put him into a sit, and then I can pet him all he wants. And even though I had to help him, you piece of work, I had to help you. You can still pet him and praise him, even though you helped. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit because it's very important. Okay, and now I can pet him. So instead of just petting the dog and giving him free love or whatever, try to get into the habit of making him sit first. It's hard because, you know, dogs walk by and what's our immediate... We'll go into homes to work with people who are having problems, let's say with a status aggressive dog. Status aggression is towards the owners. It's weak leadership usually in the household, and the dog is a little more dominant, and the dog sees that there's no leadership here, and so they take over. And what they do is sometimes, not always, sometimes they use aggression to express their leadership, to keep control things, okay? So we teach people that the dog has to work for everything. Nothing in life is free, and it's especially important with aggressive dogs. So, you know, we tell them, don't, you know, as much as you can, avoid petting the dog without having him sit first or do something for you before you give him that love and that attention in the form of petting. And so we'll be sitting there talking to them, and the next minute the dog walks by, and it's it's like, it's just automatic, right? I mean, it's like bred into humans to put your hand out and touch the dog when the dog walks by. And we just got through saying, you know, so make sure, you know, so it's hard. That's why I say, I gotta modify your behaviors a little bit, and that's the tough part. That's the tough part, not the training the dog. Once you get into this mode, okay, you know, and it takes some time for you to consciously force yourself to do some of these things, and then eventually it just becomes automatic, okay? And so now you're in that mode, all right? But it does take time. Question? Yeah. You can ask a question. Any question you want to ask is great. Anything?
No.
Okay, think about it, and then if you have one, you tell me, all right? Okay, good. All right, so let's get into, if there are no other questions about that stuff, then let's move on to questions, your questions. I'm going to remain silent while you all think and ask me your questions.
I don't know if it's more of a question or, my dog's really, really fearful of other people, other dogs. Is that something we'll be addressing within the 6 week
Well,
period?
We will address it with you because you have a problem with that. And so Glenn will give you instructions when you're in the classroom. You're going to go up to him and say, my dog is extremely fearful. And Glenn will tell you what to do and alert the rest of the class, you know, don't let your dogs do such and such, don't let them, you know, whatever he sees that he thinks is needed. And the first class, you may end up just sitting there not doing much of anything. Okay? Your dog may be under your chair because your dog is so fearful. And we want your dog to slowly acclimate. We want your dog to do it on his or her terms, rather than trying to force them to socialize or force them to be in the middle of these dogs doing this work. You know what I'm saying? So don't feel, oh, I'm losing ground here by just sitting. You may end up with a dog that is between your legs for the first class. But I can tell you that I have never had a fearful dog in class that didn't, after a few weeks, get right out there and start walking